Hey Creep Freaks, thanks for coming back to the channel. We've got a good haunted house story for you tonight. Quick plug for my book, Creepy Horror. The link to Amazon is below. Do me a favor if you haven't already. Click on that link and let me know what you think. Now, let's get to tonight's story. Good Bones and Old Keys. Written in red by Bryant. The face of the dead man sitting in the driver's seat of the car looked mummified, as did his hands. His skin was yellowish, translucent and tight as a drum. His cheeks sunk in, making his cheekbones pop out. There were no eyes, only black eye sockets where eyes used to be. His lips were shriveled into nothing. The corpse grinned at you with teeth fully exposed. His fingers were tiny sticks, pure bones with no meat. And the way his clothes were so baggy, I assumed the rest of his body looked the same way. I didn't know this sort of thing could happen. I mean, I knew about mummies like they had in ancient Egypt, but I didn't know people could die and look like this. I thought people's skin rotted and then they became bone like you see in the movies. But it's probably better to see this mummified dude than some stinky, nasty, rotted thing. Either way, it scared the crap out of me and made me swallow my heart. I was a real chicken when I turned and saw the body. I yelped and jumped back. Glad Luca didn't see me. I mean, I'm supposed to be the brave one, but I thought the body was real. And by real, I mean alive. My life flashed before my eyes. Okay, so at 13, it hasn't been a long life, but still. I thought the mummy would jump out of his seat. I thought we would be busted for sure, that someone knew Luca and I snuck into this empty house on Locust Street. The Locust Street house had a long history in the neighborhood. First, it was the only house in the subdivision that was from before World War II. I don't know exactly when it was built, but you could see the style was completely different than the rest of the houses, all of which were cookie-cutter split levels built in the 70s. I lived off Marydale, which intersected with Locust Street. It wasn't a big neighborhood. I mean, more houses than I could count, but not one of those massive subdivisions. There was quite a bit of construction going on around us and lots of room to grow. With all the earth movers around, they had a dirt field past Locust Street. That's where the U was. Well, we called it the U because the dirt was shaped like a half pipe in one spot. You know, it looked like a U. I passed by that house on Locust Street every day. The strange thing was, no other houses were built on that street. Only this one, this square brick of a building with a detached garage out back. The house wasn't much to look at. I mean, it looked like a prison if you ask me. Age-red brick all around and small rectangular windows without window frames. There weren't even any shutters or anything around the windows to give it curb appeal. To me, the only thing missing were bars across the windows. I mean, the thing was ugly, and that's saying something given the generic look of the rest of the houses around. Everyone had a story about the Locust Street house. Some said the land was the site of a native burial ground, and that's why the builders couldn't build there. Some said the ground was contaminated with toxic waste. Others said it was something about the house itself, that there was something evil about it. Now, I'm not sure how a house could be evil, but people said you couldn't destroy the bricks of the house. That's why they never leveled the place and built around it. The story that really freaked me out, though, was about the bones in the house. My friend Pat called the house the Bone House. He said the house was alive and it told people to do things. It made them do things they didn't want to do, that it wanted their bones. I didn't believe his story, but everything seems to be checking out. I mean, there's a mummy staring me in the face after all. Hey, Luca, come check this out. Come look who's in the Chevy. Luca was outside the garage keeping watch. The plan was for me to go in, see if there was any loot we could swipe, and then get out and have some fun with it. I was hoping there'd be an RC car or something we could play with, maybe a BB gun or something. I had no idea there'd be an old car covered in dust that's occupied by a mummy. Luca was even more nervous about this than I was. That's why he was waiting outside the garage. Luca and me, we're a team. We've explored this whole neighborhood together on our Huffy bikes. Pop some wheelies, jump some curbs, do laps at the U every day after school. Though we were best friends, I'd say Luca was the more reserved one, though. Like in summertime, we'd bike to the quarry past the railroad tracks. I'd go jumping right into the water without any hesitation. Luca would have to be coaxed to do the same. It was kind of like that for everything with Luca. Think first, then act. I'm more of an act first kind of person. I'm just wired that way. I kind of wanted to poke at the corpse with a stick or something, but I didn't want to do it without Luca seeing it first. I mean, what happens if the head rolls off or something? I'm assuming the mummy was someone that once lived here, or maybe still lives here, I guess you could say. But I wonder how long he's been here. The car seems like from before I was born. It's a model I've never seen anyways. I recognized a Chevy bow tie on the steering wheel, but that's about it. The exterior looks blue, but the whole thing is covered in so much dust it could be another color, I wouldn't know. The mummy looks like an old man with thin, wispy white hair and thick Coke bottle glasses that sit in his bony lap. They seem to have fallen off of his face as his nose cartilage rotted away. I wonder if he died in his car naturally or if what Pat said was true. Did the house say something that made him kill himself? And I wonder what his name is. "Dude, that's kind of nasty," Luca said as he entered the garage, reluctantly shuffling his feet forward, staring with giant eyeballs at the body in the car. "Yeah, it is." Neither of us said a word for a good 5 minutes. Luca shifted from foot to foot. I played with my lips. We just stood there and took in the sight of the corpse. "How do you think he died?" Luca said, finally breaking the silence. "No idea," I said, "but it looks like he went peacefully. I mean, there's no gunshot wound or anything. And it looks like he's been here a long while, considering he's a mummy." The body had been in the garage so long that it didn't stink like I would expect it to. The mummy was wearing faded brown corduroy pants and a pale yellow button-up shirt. He even had on brown loafers on his feet. His right foot was on the gas pedal, too. The body looked like somebody put him in there, like if you were building a haunted house or a Halloween decoration, and you put a mummy inside the car to drive it. The only thing missing was the hands attached to the steering wheel. Instead, they fell down to his sides. "Should we call the cops or something?" Lucas said. "I don't know. I mean, if we did that, we gotta say why we're in here. And I don't want to get in trouble for breaking into this guy's house or nothing." My eyes glanced downward towards the man's right hand, which was wedged between the driver's side door and the center console. The hand was holding something shiny. "What is that?" I said. "What is that in his hand?" I leaned in and took a closer look. "I think it's his keys. Hey, give me something I can fish it out with, because I'm not touching this thing." I wondered if the car would start. I mean, it looked like this guy was getting ready to go somewhere. Maybe his heart gave out or something. But then I realized, even if the car does start, what could we do? We weren't old enough to drive yet, and I wasn't going to push this mummy out of the seat. I wasn't going to sit where a mummy was sitting. Luca found a fishing pole in the corner of the garage and handed it to me. I grimaced as I poked the mummy's hand with the pole, trying to get the keys on the rod and pull them out. It reminded me of playing the claw game at the arcade. I stabbed and jabbed, but couldn't get the keys to attach to the pole. Then I got a bit overzealous and hit the mummy's hand too hard. The hand detached at the wrist, bones breaking apart as it fell onto the seat. Then the keys dropped between the seat and the console. "Shit," I muttered. "What now?" Lucas said. "Well, one of us is going to have to lean over and get those keys," I said. "And I can't get them with this fishing pole when they're wedged down there." Luca rubbed the back of his neck and looked around the garage. "Hey, why don't we just get out of here, man? I mean, we don't even know what those keys are for. We shouldn't be in here. Let's just go." I shook my head. "Hey, we're here already. Let's get the keys. Maybe they opened his house, and who knows what he's got in there." I flicked my chin towards the corpse. I mean, it's not like he needs this stuff anyways. Luca shrugged. "Okay, well, I'm leaving the grave robbing to you. I'm not getting next to that mummy. It freaks me out." After some careful maneuvering, I got the keys. There were 3 keys attached. One was the Chevy key, clearly marked. The other one looked like a normal house key, but the third key, it looked ancient. It was round and rusty with gnarly teeth and strange symbols etched into it. It reminded me of something that would open a pirate's treasure chest. I wondered what it would open. Maybe there was a treasure inside the house and Luca and I would be rich. I pulled Luca by the arm to the back door of the house. Luca objected and kept telling me it was wrong to go in there, but I overruled him. "What else we doing today?" I said. Like the rest of the house, the door was quite utilitarian. A natural wood-colored door without any windows or distinctive markings, only a golden knob with its keyhole in the middle. The house key fit no problem. As I turned the key, the knob turned with it. I pushed the back door open with my hand, and a gust of stale, dusty wind shot out past us, as if the entire house exhaled when I opened the door. Both of us coughed a bit and waved our hands in the air, fanning for clean air. I smiled and looked at Luca and nodded yes. He frowned and nodded back no. I entered the house first. Luca looked around, scanning the perimeter of the house, and then followed me in. The first room we entered was the kitchen. The house looked like the car, a thick layer of dust covering everything. There were no prints anywhere, so clearly the house had been unoccupied for a long time. The kitchen looked like it was from the 50s or maybe the 60s. The cabinets were a pale green. The countertop, I think, was a frosty yellow, though it was hard to see the exact color under the dust. A small wooden table with 4 chairs was off to the side. I guess that was the dining room, though it really wasn't a separate room from the kitchen. We moved slowly forward, Luca keeping so close to me I could feel his breath on my neck. The house smelled of musty earth. Maybe it was thoughts of the mummy in the car dancing through my head, but I smelled decay. Not trash like rot, but more like wet cardboard boxes. I could tell the house hadn't been aired out in probably decades. I felt like we were moon explorers, venturing somewhere last visited long time ago. In the living room was a faded cloth couch with a hippie chic paisley motif. In front of the couch was a dark oak coffee table with fluted legs. And then in front of that was a big box of a wooden TV, something that should have been in a museum. We walked past the living room down the hallway, passing doors on the left and right. One was a bedroom with a full-size bed and a dresser with an attached mirror. The bed was made neatly with white linens. Again, everything was covered in a layer of dust. Across from the bedroom was a bathroom, the same vintage as the rest of the house. If the mummy ever lived in this house, you wouldn't have known it. Other than the dust, the entire place was model house perfect. There weren't even any pictures on the wall or shoes or anything in the place. The door next to the bathroom was another bedroom. The look was the same as the previous one. The only difference was the wall behind the bed was painted light brown. All the other walls in the house were stark white. I guess it's what you would call an accent wall. And past that bedroom was another door, but this one was locked. I rattled the handle, trying to jig it loose, but didn't have any luck. I looked over to Luca and he shrugged. "Guess that's it," he said. "Let's go." Dreams of locked-away treasure raced through my head. "Let's try the other key," I told him. I pulled out the old key with the writing on it and held it up, shaking it as if I was a magician, showing off the saw I would use to cut a lady in half. A shiver went up my spine and the hair on my neck stood up. The feeling of coldness overcame me. It was brief, so brief I didn't mention anything to Luca. He didn't seem to have an involuntary movement like I did, so I figured it was just me. I put the key into the keyhole of the door. It fit perfectly. I looked at Luca. His face was smushed, his hands clenched tight, his nostrils flared with deep breaths. I turned the key, and the lock made 2 loud clicking noises that echoed off the hall walls. It reminded me of when a jailer opens a cell door. The door creaked as I pushed it open. Unlike the other rooms that were bright with sun coming through the windows, this room was dark. We couldn't see anything but a few inches past the door frame. "Come on, let's get out of here," Luca pleaded. "No way, man," I said. "We've come this far. Let's see what this old dude has." "Here, you first." I pushed Luca into the room. He tripped over my foot, screamed, and crashed into something in the darkness. Before I could reach my hand out to help him, the door slammed shut. The force of the door closing made my hair fly back. "Luca, you okay?" I yelled. I rattled the key in the handle and tried to open the door again, but it wouldn't budge. "Luca! Luca!" I kicked the door, punched it, tried slamming my shoulder against it, but nothing would make the heavy brown door move. It didn't even give in the slightest. "Luca, are you alive? Are you okay?" I put my ear against the door, trying to listen for any sounds coming from inside the dark room. The feeling of coldness again washed over me. I'm... It was Luca. He was alive. Luca said something, but I couldn't quite hear it. His voice was so weak and scared. "Hang on, Luca!" I ran through the house looking for anything I could find to help open the door. But other than the coffee table, there was nothing. I thought about somehow using the TV, but it was too heavy for me to lift. I felt so guilty for pushing Luca into the room. I was only trying to scare him and have a little fun. I didn't know he would trip and the door would shut and he'd get stuck like he did. I ran like a madman into the garage and found a bag of golf clubs. I wasn't sure it would do much against the door, but it was the best thing I could find. When I returned inside, I took a whack at the door. The golf club vibrated in my hands, making my wrist hurt. "Hurry up," Lucas said. I don't think I'm alone. I feel something on my skin, something touching me, someone touching me." I kept whacking the door with the golf clubs. When my arms got tired, I tried ramming it some more with my shoulder, but nothing worked. The door wouldn't budge. The house made settling sounds under my feet, creaks and moans that got louder, rising as if somebody was turning the dial on a radio. From the other side of the door, Lucas screamed. A ghostly voice from everywhere said, "Stay. Good house, good bones just like you have. Stay." I slammed my whole body against the door. "Luca!" No response. Behind me, I heard steps, one foot after the other. When I turned, I saw the old man mummy walking towards me, stumbling towards me with those black holes for eyes that bore through my soul. He looked like he was laughing with his lipless, all-teeth smile. He raised a hand, the only hand he had, and made a primal grunty noise. From his mouth came hundreds of moths. The air became rank and sour as the moths fluttered around my head. I closed my eyes and swung reflexively with the golf club, trying to shoo the moths away. I could feel them landing in my hair, their tiny legs touching my skin, making it crawl. I spun in a fast, tight circle, holding the golf club, swinging it like a shot put, letting the weight of the club head carry me around and around and around until there was a crack, brief resistance, then a thud on the floor. I stopped spinning, but the room didn't. I had to put my hand against the wall to keep my balance. There were no more moths flying overhead, but when I looked at my feet, I saw the head of the mummy. Its jaw was missing. Teeth littered the floor. His headless body lay next to the bathroom door. Behind me, the locked door rattled. I clutched the golf club tight, ready for another mummy or some sort of creature to attack. As the door handle turned, I raised the club, ready to strike. From a crack in the door, I saw an eyeball. "Terry, is that you? What was that noise? Can I come out?" The rush of cold air came back and the door blew open. Within the door frame, Lucas stood shivering. Something was in there. I don't know what it was, but I felt it. I ducked my head into the room, but couldn't see anything in the darkness. "Come on, let's go." I grabbed his hand and we walked slowly down the hall. We carefully stepped over the headless mummy. I held the golf club up, ready to strike in case the mummy came back to life, but it remained lifeless. When we got to the living room, we looked back. The door at the end of the hallway was closed again. The old key with the writing on it was still in the keyhole. In the hallway, the mummy began slowly melting into the floorboards, being absorbed into the house until he didn't exist. Luca and I looked at each other in disbelief. We said in unison. The stench of decay blew through the whole house. It was an unbearable smell that made me gag. "Come on," I said, giving Luca's hand a tug. When we got to the kitchen and saw the back door open and the grass outside, we unlocked our hands and sprinted towards the daylight. Just as we thought we were out, the doorway transformed. The green grass that was before us was now steps down to a dark underworld. Our momentum made us tumble down the stairs. We landed with a thud in the basement of the house. The walls were dreary concrete slabs. Bright sunlight stabbed through slit-like windows at the top of the basement walls. In the corner was a furnace with a grate that flashed a menacing grin. In the middle of the dirt floor was a pile of bones. Lucas said exactly what I was thinking. Where the hell are we? I thought about the voice that came from the house, the words about staying, about good bones. I heard my mom say that about a house we looked at once, that it had good bones. I'm not quite sure what she meant, but I knew this wasn't it. In all the stories I heard about this house, even Pat's Bone House story, which turned out to be true, there was nothing about magic that distorts reality. Nothing about a house that can make basement stairs appear out of nowhere. Nothing about a house that can keep you inside. I wondered if that's what happened to the mummy. Could he not escape? Luca tapped me on the shoulder and motioned with his head towards the stairs behind us. I understood. Let's go. As we turned to head upstairs, cold air rushed past us, pushing me backwards, separating me from Luca. I dropped the golf club and slammed against the concrete wall, the back of my head hitting hard, causing me to see stars. I was trapped, pinned against the wall by some invisible force. The house creaked, and the word "stay" reverberated through our beings. I wasn't sure if we heard the voice or felt the voice. Maybe both, but the message was clear. The words continued, "Good bones. Good bones." Lucas shook his hands nervously and looked like a cat on hot bricks. I had never seen him so scared before. Though I was stuck against the wall, I got his attention with my eyes and mouth. "Golf club." He nodded, silently reached down to grab the golf club, and did the bravest thing I had ever seen him do. He yelled and charged towards the pile of bones, smashing them again and again. Pieces of femur went flying and shards of skull whizzed past me. The house wheezed. A bony hand reached up from the pile, trying to grab Luca's jeans, but he smashed that too. A current of cold air rushed from the basement and I dropped from the floor. But Luca didn't let up. He just kept screaming and smashing the bones into smaller and smaller pieces. When I was able to get up, I ran towards him and grabbed him by the arm, and we ran up the stairs. There were no locked doors this time, no trickery. We made it outside and collapsed on the lawn. The warmth of the sun felt wonderful. I thought I might never feel that again. Behind us, the door to the back of the house slammed shut. We raced home and told our parents everything that happened. They called the police, who came out to investigate. When they showed up, the house was locked, so they had to use their equipment to break in. They wouldn't let us in at first, but after they did a sweep and found nothing, They allowed us to go inside. Luca and I hesitated. We really didn't want to go back inside that house, but figured with the cops there, it would be okay. The house was back to its empty, dusty self. There were no bones in the basement either, no sign of anything amiss. There was, however, the locked door at the end of the hallway. The police didn't bother opening that. On the way out, Luca and I saw it, that old key with the writing on it, laying on the kitchen counter. It wasn't there when we walked in. A cop noticed it too and picked it up. The chill came back, giving me goosebumps. I thought the door open to the backyard would turn into the basement stairs again. But when the cop put the key back down, the chill went away and things stayed the same. We walked out of the house and the cops locked it up on their way out. Luca and I never dared to go near Locust Street ever again. We didn't even pass it when we went to the U. Word got around the neighborhood and people used to go look at the house, but no one dared ever enter it. Not after what happened.